From Washington, D.C., welcome to the 128th edition of the Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddie Hudson, and I'm here today with Trade Martin and Bob Marks.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show with your hosts, Freddie Hudson and Trade Martin.
This week's Alumni Show is brought to you by Bill Houghton, insuring standardbreds and farms for over 40 years. Bill knows the ins and outs of equine insurance. Make sure your equine investments are protected. Call or text Bill at 954-655-5547. That's 954-655-5547. Call Bill now.
Freddie, tell us about the yearlings at the sales by Hunterton Farms.
Hunterton Farms, selling their 2021 yearlings at the Lexington Select Sale, October 5th through the 9th, and the Harrisburg Sale, November 8th through the 12th. For more information, call 859-987-3983, Hunterton Farms, or email huntertonfarm@cs.com. Joining us today is Hunterton Farms' Steve Stewart. Steve, welcome on our show.
Glad to be here, buddy.
Steve, the Kentucky Sire Stakes and Commonwealth Sire Series is taken off. Who precisely is eligible to and what and where does the increased financing come from?
Who's eligible? So I guess it was about 7-8 years ago, maybe it's probably longer than that. I'm not exactly sure of the date. We changed our program because we really weren't getting stallions that we needed to our program, because our program that many years ago was probably about $2 million. And so we changed our program. I think my brother Bob came up with the idea that we would make it a mare residency program to make those mares, so basically the mares that live in the state of Kentucky in their conception year, the year that they're bred, 180 days, and it does not have to be consecutive. They could leave and go to breed to Chapter 7 and then come back if they were here all along, or however people want to do it. But 6 months, they live in the state of Kentucky. They can leave after they do their 180 days. They can foal anywhere they want. And then that baby, wherever it's born, wherever it's raised, is Kentucky eligible. And so what has happened is we were funded originally by the just pari-mutuel wagering, and obviously we don't have very many tracks. We have 4 million people in the state of Kentucky, so it's not a big state population-wise. So we were always behind the 8 ball compared to Ohio and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, with much larger, more racetracks and more population. But then and at that time we were able to generate about $2 million in addition to some money from pari-mutuel. We get 13% of the sales tax. There's sales tax charged to all the thoroughbred mares bred in the state. And so we get 13% of that, which generates about $1.8 to $2 million a year. So we were living on that for many years. Then they worked out, the thoroughbreds and Red Mala worked out a plan to have instant racing machines that were put in, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. And they got started or whatever, and now it takes a while for them to kind of get going, but now they're really churning. But the big turning point happened last October. Churchill Downs, the big thoroughbred track in Louisville, and they own obviously many tracks throughout the country, built a harness track in western Kentucky called Oak Grove. And we had originally budgeted only $1 million that it would generate. What we generate on these machines is 1% of the gross. So it's a very large amount of money that is brought in. And so we originally, this time last year, before they even started, the 5-member committee that said, well, how much do you think they're going to generate? We know they're going to open up next month, which was last October, because we have our meetings in August and September to decide how we're going to not so much how we're going to fund. We know what the money is there, and then we decide how to disperse it. So we ended up saying, well, let's just be very conservative, and we will say that they'll generate $1 million. Well, they ended up generating $6 million. for our program. So, and then the Red Mile continues to do well. Red Mile kicks in about $3 to $4 million, and then so this year our program was only $6 million. It was $6.2 million. So we had our meeting the other day, and we had left. As of today, we have over almost $12 million sitting in the account because we did not think that Oak Grove would do so well, but they obviously are. That little track down there they're betting $100 million a month at that track or whatever, $3 million a day on these machines. So it's really incredible the amount of money that these machines are generating, and harness racing is one of the success stories or whatever you want to call it. We're benefiting greatly from it. So we had our meeting last Friday, and we decided that obviously we knew it was going to grow, but we didn't realize it was going to be growing this much. We're going from $6 million this year to $17 million next year, an $11 million increase for next year. And we're even having 4-year-old races similar to the Graduate Series with 4 legs of 50,000. The finals, we're going to have 3 different divisions, which I think is critical for our Kentucky breds, and they will have $80,000 legs, 4 $80,000 legs at the top level with a $400,000 final. Then we'll have the middle leg will be the Commonwealth. It'll have 4 legs of 30,000 with a $100,000 final. Then we're also adding a third division, which will be $15,000 legs with a $50,000 final. We're adding probably 40% more to the fairs. We have 7 or 8 fairs in Kentucky. They're going to be going for close to $1.5 million. So, I mean, it's as I told one of the clients, because we've been doing this, Cindy and I at Hunterton have been doing this for about 40 years, and we've now lived long enough that Kentucky, who is used to be on the bottom, will about be on the very top of the breed developments of any state. So it's really an eye-opener, to say the least.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Do you think there might be a negative impact on the sire stake programs of other states?
To be honest with you, I don't think it'll be a negative. I think obviously if you have a Pennsylvania, so what happens is, since we are, the one thing that really helps our breed development horses is they're not only Kentucky eligible because of the mare, they're also eligible because of the sire, because every other state makes their eligibility based on the sires that stand in the state. So consequently, when we breed 2 Captain Treacherous, as an example, a mare that lives in Kentucky being bred to Captain Treacherous or any stallion, you're not only eligible to the $17 million, but you're also eligible to the lucrative Pennsylvania. What will start happening is, the Tony Alanias and Nancy Tactors and those they'll have a decision now. Before, a lot of them, they would race in Pennsylvania. Some of them would decide just to come to the Red Mile and race. That's the other thing that's unique, is that the bulk of our money is being distributed in about a 5-week period of time, starting after the Hamiltonian, and it's over with in September, around the 15th or the middle of September. Now we are also, because of Oak Grove bringing in so much money, there'll be sire stakes at Oak Grove also. And then there'll be also, and that's the other thing that's going to, there's so much to talk about, but the other thing that is not mentioned very often is that there's also another track that's being built down I-75 in Corbin near the Tennessee border. It's about an hour south of Lexington. That's being built by Keeneland, the thoroughbred track in Lexington, and Kentucky Downs, another thoroughbred track. And so now we're going to have another track that will start generating money next June. So we're very confident that the $17 million is probably not the peak, that it will probably continue to grow. So people buying yearlings this year will be racing for $17 million next year in our program. But then in subsequent years, I don't think we're done growing, because we have another track that will be coming on board and they say that their machines or whatever should be up and going probably next June. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Yeah, it's really crazy but the lucrative part are these instant racing machines that, and we have no other casinos in the state like a lot of other, so there's really not very much competition. The reason why they're building these tracks on the southern border of Kentucky is there's no gambling. There's only, I think they have a lottery, but there's no gambling more or less south of us. There's none in Georgia. There's none in Tennessee, which borders Kentucky. So that's what they're doing. They're drawing people from these other states for the same thing that's happening at the Meadowlands with sports betting. People are coming across the Hudson or whatever and going to the Meadowlands. It's the same scenario.
Great, so true. The Kentucky sale is a few days away, the Lexington Selected Sale, and you have a large consignment there. Would you like to talk about it? Sure.
We're blessed with a lot of really good horses. Every year we seem like we have quite a few nice ones. This year the talk is Walner, and we have 8 Walners to sell, and some of them are pretty much bred in the purple. We've got a Walner daughter of Southwind Serena, so she's a half-sister to Mission Brief and Tactical Landing, and we've got and then there's several other top Walners, one out of D1, and so we've got quite a few Walners to sell, and then we're excited about selling the offspring of a stallion that we bred, raised, and sold, Tactical Landing. It's his first crop, and we have quite a few of those to sell. So we anticipate the sale to be very good. Keeneland was I saw a headline where they set a record. I don't know what the record was. Thoroughbreds have many records that they espouse to, but usually we follow them, and I believe that as I've told people, if you could survive last year with the COVID in full swing, this year with much more less mandates and whatnot, I think the sale will be more attended. I think we'll still lose quite a few people not being able to come from Europe, but they worked around it last year and it worked, and I think this year it'll be more attended. And it was funny, what was so interesting, one of the few people that were there, and I would take his picture and send it to people and say, Dave McDuffie at 80-some years old is here, where are you? And I sent it to Myron Bell and a few other people, where are you, type of thing. Here, this guy's bouncing around. And what's wonderful is it benefited him greatly because he bought Venerable from us that won the $1 million race on Saturday. And then him winning the Hamiltonian Oaks. He's having a stellar year, to say the least. So he was definitely rewarded by going into the pandemic, and fearless Dave McDuffie came out of the sales in unbelievable fashion by being here where a lot of people were not able to come. So he benefited by coming. So we had a great weekend, and we really anticipate, but I think all boats will be raised. I think the sale will be very strong because I think that not only Dave and Nifty are doing well, I think just about every trainer you can name has good horses. I don't think it's just one or two stables are doing well. So I think it's really spread out, and I think we'll see that at the sales.
Okay. My last question for you. Any thoughts about the USTA's continued resistance to HISA?
Well, I think if you read HRU and you see Jeff Gural's response to Russell, I think it hits the nail on the head. I think nothing more needs to be said. I think he said it 100% right. Are we willing to accept the status quo? And I think most people have a lot of concerns. Anytime there's change, people get nervous, and I get that, and I understand that, and I understand that no one wants, federal oversight if you don't have to have it. But I think we failed miserably, and that's when the feds will come in. And I think we're fortunate that the connections that Jeff has with Pelosi and some of the other people in the legislators, and I think the tipping point was McConnell, who's our state senator in Kentucky, that finally got it pushed through. I think that we should continue to work with them. I agree with Jeff that we should sit back, see how it works, but I don't think that suing them is the answer. I don't understand the thinking that if you can improve your situation in doing something, why wouldn't you explore it? I'm not saying we should join. None of us has said we should join. All we're saying is let's gather information. It looks like we probably should, but it should be under our terms. The concern that we have is by not working with them now as they draft the legislation and how it's all going to go down, we lose the step in there that could help us because we know our horses are different. And I think that's the approach that Russell is taking, which I think is correct, that we are different, that we should have different rules for us. But if they're writing the rules now, how it's going to be much more difficult for us to be included in a separate how it's going to work for harness racing versus thoroughbred. It may be a matter of when we go in, the only way we're going to be accepted or be brought in is that we are under the racing rules of thoroughbreds, which I think is a disappointment. I think that we can live with that. Kentucky is right now, there's no Lasix in Kentucky. I don't hear anybody not racing in Kentucky because of that. Maybe there are some. But I think that, there's ways to work around so much of this. One is you have a lot of people. I think that the young horses don't need Lasix as much, but I think that maybe the older horses do. But what you do is you grandfather it in. You start with 2-year-olds maybe in 2023, and then subsequent years, that 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, to where the people that have aged horses racing at Yonkers or whatever, this would not affect them. But it will affect our industry because we need to stop the drugs in racing somehow because it's not a good visual, and visuals mean everything. And when people start, there's many people, young people, that when you tell them that the horses are being drugged on race day, regardless of what the drug is, when you use the word drug and horse, that's not a good sentence to use. So I just hope that Russell and them can see the light and see that working with people is the way to go and not suing them and trying to stop something that I think has the potential of helping us.
Yeah, well, I was just going to add one other question in here. With all this new money coming into Kentucky, do you think any trainers are going to boycott it over Lasix?
No. No, I don't see it. I don't see it now with I didn't see it now with $6 million. So if they don't boycott it at 6, they sure as heck aren't going to boycott it at 17. And I think there are some horses. I have a horse right now that's on Lasix in Ohio, and it's allowed there, but it's not allowed here. So, I understand it helps him, but if we do away with Lasix, we'll figure out a way. Anybody that doesn't believe you can't race horses without Lasix, go talk to Aki Swanstead. There's a man that's been in Sweden for all his life up till 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, whatever, had a 200-horse stable. Go talk to him. Ask him how he did it. Maybe we won't be able to race them as often. But I think that the visual times have changed, and we can't keep doing what we're doing. We have to include the millennials and these younger people that have seem to have much more animal care concerns than maybe our generation does. So, but that's the future of racing. So we have to change and learn how to change, and we know that we're the only country, us in Canada are the only country in the world that allows it. So we know that standardbreds can race without it, and I think that the oversight will go to a whole nother level in catching the cheats, and I think that's the key, that federal people can wiretap, and that's why you have a lot of people that were arrested 15, 16 months ago. So I think the feds don't always have the answer to everything we have, but I think it's a better mousetrap.
Absolutely. If you're buying or selling your home, Joe Rico is your go-to guy. Joe has been representing buyers and sellers on Long Island for 30 years. He is an expert in all types of sales. Don't settle for average. Call or text Joe Rico today at 516-524-4870. That's Joe Rico at 516-524-4870.
Fred, give everyone Joe's email address.
That's Joe Rico, C21 at yahoo.com. Crawford Farms, breeding the best to the best so that you can race the best. The Crawford Farms consignment will be selling at the Lexington Selected Yearling Sale on October 5th through the 9th. For more information, please visit Crawford Farms' website at crawfordfarms.com. Steve, as always, it's great having you on the show. You have an open invitation to come back anytime that you like.
Thanks, Freddie. I really appreciate all you do, and you are a big help to our industry and a star that really doesn't get shown enough. But as time goes on, the cream rises to the top. So keep up the good work with you guys, too.
Thank you, Steve. That's a wrap for this week's broadcast of the Harness Racing Alumni Show. On behalf of Trade, Bob, and myself, thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in next week. And remember, the Lexington Select Sale is next week. Check out the Hunterton Farm consignment.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show